sidewalk without a
Let's put
problem.
it this way,
well,
we
cool.
took the shuttle when we got there, because we didn't know how far it was.
Yeah.
Where are we going?
So we took it
West
to the
Palm on the
far
flight
end.
line.
Well, as we're walking back, when we get to this Dalton Abbey thing, we look and there's the station. So we walk the rest
It's
of the
confusing.
way.
It's all
Okay,
under
well,
construction in the city center.
And coffee's
Yes,
free on the bread.
I have the advantage of never knowing where I am or how to
That's
get
good.
there.
That's why you
Okay.
have Ann Beth.
That's exactly
She's
right.
your GPS.
My wife is
Your
my
personal
GPS, even before GPS, and I have to commend her because she is able, you could take her someplace and 5 years later, she can go exactly back to that same
Memory,
place.
she has memory.
Really?
Right, and the,
Graphical memory.
but the question is, see, what I have to do is I have to do, you know, bit by bit by bit, block by block by block. She is able to see the whole thing. Jordan can do that too. And I just want to let you know, when we were living in Portsmouth and a stranger would come Friday night and they would say, could you get me to the traffic circle? I would say, I cannot direct you, but I will get into my car and you will follow me. And that's what they did. And I would go home and tell my wife, and she would say, you know, you're impossible. Yeah, but I am proud to say that because of leaders like me, we spent 40 years in the wilderness to get from Egypt to Israel.
Now we went 2 miles.
You could get there in 6 hours, but the old line is
Bicycle, 6 hours.
because Moses didn't roll down the window and ask for directions. Okay, well, I'm sure you are curious about the number one story, which of course is Mr. Cohen Goes to Congress, which is not
watching
going
the
to be
hearing.
That's gonna
TV.
be a good movie.
Yeah, I'll bet. You know, I'll ask you, because I asked somebody earlier today, is this good or bad for the Jews?
Neither.
Probably bad because I look at
I don't
that
think
slime
it
ball.
affects
Is
them
that,
one way or the other.
Wait, one at a time.
I think it's going to be
Slime
bad for us.
ball.
They're going to say, look at that, what he was doing before he got caught, and he's a Jew. And all they care
Okay.
about is money, money. I'm
All
telling
right, back to Paul.
I say it won't matter one way or another.
Okay,
I
yes.
agree with Paul.
All right. See, that is the thing. That is the beauty of America. That is why, in spite of all this kerfuffle, and I think it's worse than that.
You sound like Judge Judy.
I know.
That's her
I'm
word.
proud. I don't know.
Kerfuffle's good.
I,
Kerfuffle's good.
I'm proud to be an American because when I was a kid, I mean, think about it. I was too little then, but when the Rosenbergs were put on trial, of course, that was a matter of much more seriousness than this current one, even though this current one threatens the very foundations of the Republic.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. But you see, back in those days, every Jew was scared because they didn't identify with the Rosenbergs, but they were afraid of being caught, you know, as a Jew. And historically, that is the Jewish position. But America really is different. This guy is indeed, who called him a slime ball?
You- you-
Yes, he is a
I
slime
did.
ball. Yes, you
Admit
did.
it.
It's a slime ball.
I know he is. I admit it. Don't laugh.
But he is an American slime ball. He's not a Jewish American slime ball. He's not even, I mean, obviously, he's not the best Jew in the world. Hello, good evening.
He's a bad.
Well, I would amend
He
that.
Okay, wait,
actually
one at a time.
He
And then
actually is a
Paul.
bad person.
Oh, yes, but not as a Jew. Not from a Jewish, I mean, from a Jewish standpoint, yes, he is. But he's a New York Jew. He doesn't,
It's ironic
it's not a religious thing.
that this is all we're going to talk about today.
No, I hope not.
No.
I got
no,
other stuff.
No, I don't mean it.
I got the rat trying to get out of the sewer. Go ahead. Which could be related to him also.
Here you
Hello,
go.
have a seat.
Sit down, ladies. Enjoy yourselves.
Hi, good
Yes,
to
hi,
meet
new
you.
person. Who are you?
Elaine.
Elaine, that's a
Hello,
beautiful
Elaine.
name.
Hi,
That was my
Elaine.
mother.
Hello,
It's like an AA meeting.
No, we have to do it as a
name is
group.
Jeff, and I'm a
1,
Jew.
2, 3. Hello, Elaine. You didn't do it. One, oh, never mind. Okay, where were we? We were slime balling.
Yes, we were.
Here's what we were dressed all day, and not
Drown
a
in
word,
French.
not one
No,
word about
Oh,
it.
yes, you have to leave.
Wait. Toby, I love you. Leave the space. No, you gotta go this
No,
way.
because
Which
No.
way?
Sit in Paul's lap. His wife won't like it.
Paul and called me
Okay,
out.
now you can move on. All right.
Oh, Paul, you're going to hurt.
Okay.
I like his wife too much.
All right. That's fine. Are we
Told me
good?
sit.
Are we good
Down,
almost?
down.
That's what I need, somebody
Foot
else's
long,
husband.
right?
I don't want to
I don't
change.
have enough trouble.
Nobody got no went.
You stay with your hat.
Come on.
Attention,
It
children.
was Ann's turn. Ann and then
No,
Paul.
and I watched it almost
I
all
was just
day.
watching
It was
it
like
on-
my soap opera for
Well,
the day.
God bless you, because that's a great many minutes that you're not gonna get back. Okay,
But
go
the
ahead.
irony is, here you have your so-called president
Yes.
with Kim in Vietnam.
Yes. Who's a real leader.
And
Yeah.
not one
Who,
word,
25 million people will vote for him with no question. Go
not
ahead.
one
Wonder
word,
why.
not one word about it.
Yeah.
I mean, Cohen's testimony consumed us all day.
Yeah, well, I'm obviously not the president of the Trump fan club, but if I were abroad in matters of state and eating a nice
You
dinner,
are abroad. No, you're
of
not.
course I would have to get the Schreiber's
Not
kosher
abroad.
pack. No, I haven't been. Anyway, you see what I'm saying? I wouldn't talk about so-called petty domestic concerns. I'm just saying in terms of image. The word that I never knew before. When did this come out? Optics. Unless you're an ophthalmologist.
Oh, but I think he wanted.
Okay, I think Paul was next.
Telescopes and microscopes. they use
No, but you see, it's all image, and he's very much into
But
image.
he wanted
Trump
that
is.
image. Cohen took away his image.
Right.
Oh,
So
you think
first,
so? I don't think so.
Oh, yeah, today.
Okay.
Oh,
All I
yes.
wanted
Why
to
do you
say
He's
say
gonna
that?
roll right off.
It
He-
wasn't even
No,
discussed.
I don't see a hyphenated anybody there. I just see
what's a hyphenated anybody?
Jewish
American.
American
Okay.
hyphenated Jewish
Yeah.
hyphenated American.
Right.
It's just as he said, he
definitely
was himself a fool. He was blinded by the money and the power and the prestige.
Yes.
And a lot of people are blinded by that. And so it's not
Okay.
only
Speaking
that.
of which, let's just segue into
Okay,
Matt
segue.
Gaetz. Do we know Matt Gaetz because he's your representative? Matt Gaetz,
Oh, he's
Gaetz.
not from this
No, he's
place.
up in he's in the northern part.
idiot that spoke
Yes.
Yeah, he's.
Okay, let's see. Threat of, okay, that's not
Yeah, he's
Gates.
okay.
Let's talk about Gates himself.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. When he was saying what he said about Cohen, he got back tweets from nearly every law professor in the United States of America. So let's begin with an important, no, that's the University of Texas. I thought I had NYU
What,
here.
what did he say? I'm sorry. I'm
All right,
I'm
all
not
right.
working.
All right, this is Ryan Goodman. Yes, he's the guy from NYU. He says, "Hey, Matt Gaetz, does your personal attorney know you've just engaged very clearly in the crime of witness tampering?
Oh, that
Maybe
he's
tonight would be
Yeah.
a good time for that chat. Do you understand?"
What did
He
he say?
threatened his
He
wife.
said by putting down Cohen and saying what a slime ball, that word keeps
No.
coming up.
No,
he
what
didn't
he
say
said
that.
was
Yes.
he tweeted, Cohen, do your wife and kids know about
your
your
girlfriend.
girlfriend?
Yes.
And won't
Yes.
they be waiting for you? when
Right.
you
In
come
3
home?
years, 2 years. Okay. Here's another one. Steve Vladeck. See what I love about this? I can't prove it because Goodman goes both ways. But Goodman, I had aunts
he's
and
a friend
uncles
of
who were
ours.
Goodmans, so he could be Jewish. And this Steve Vladeck for sure is Jewish. Vladeck, because I grew up across the parking lot from Vladeck houses. Do you know about 18 U.S.C. 1512 parenthesis B, which prohibits tampering with witnesses to official proceedings? And then he gives a long computer link. And the longer the link, the heavier it's going to be to read. Here's another guy. Not a joke. Oh, he's from UC Irvine. Not a joke, and I don't think such comments on Twitter would be protected by legislative immunity, even if they could be privileged if uttered on the House floor. So what he's saying to Gates is you could be arrested for what you
Gates,
said.
by the way, took down his.
Yes, he did. He said he took down the tweet. And you know, I really
What an
thought
idiot.
that this Gates guy went to the University of Yehupitzville for law school, but he went to William and Mary, which is a respectable school.
Which one, William or Mary?
Come on, you know William and Mary.
I have
When
a
you went to
question.
Williamsburg, they mentioned
How does that
yes.
fall into free speech?
It's not free speech.
No.
I mean, again, I'm not a lawyer.
It's a
You'd have to
threat.
talk to
It's
a
a
lawyer.
threat.
I
But
wasn't a
as-
threat. He just.
as
I mean, I'm
near
not
as
sticking up
I
for me.
can
I think it's
tell-
terrible.
Threatening him if he, in other
Wait,
words, he was telling him if you speak, I'm gonna.
But he already said he had a girlfriend, so it's like it's a done deal. You know what I'm saying?
I didn't know
Okay,
he had a
but
girlfriend.
legally speaking, apparently on the eve of Cohen's testimony before Congress, to which he has lied
Oh, he said it before the testimony.
Yes,
oh, I
he
thought
said it the
today.
night before
Oh,
No, he said
today.
it yesterday.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
That's why I said I didn't hear it.
So I printed out
Yes.
Gates with his little smile there, and he has all the right opinions with the emphasis on the right. He would not change the stand your ground law. He would not support changing, quote, one damn comma, unquote. Although he indicated he would listen to both sides' testimony during the hearings, which I think is really nice to say. You'll listen politely before you say you're guilty or you're going to jail or whatever. Okay? And I'm not here to rule on this, I don't rule, on the stand your ground law. November of 2017, Gates introduced a congressional resolution calling for Robert Mueller to recuse himself as special counsel because of what he called conflicts of interest. Well, you know, he is Trump's poodle dog. And there's another guy also, not from
Wasn't
Texas.
Trump aggravated that he did that?
Is it Nunez? It might be Nunez.
It's in the-
All right,
acknowledge it.
let's move on to
But
cheerier
wasn't
stuff.
Trump aggravated that he?
I don't think
It doesn't take much to aggravate Trump. But Trump has found the cure, Toby, for his aggravation. He just installed a $50,000 golf simulator in the White House.
Oh, how nice.
He takes no meetings before 11 o'clock. He likes to go schluffy frequently, more so than Reagan, which is really the world record. And, of course, the golf. He visits his golf clubs on a regular basis,
What do
they
you think
say.
he's doing for sex?
Absolutely nothing.
How do you know that?
Right hand's
Well,
got his
because
best
he
friend.
called
That's
me.
what I'm asking.
Why
I
do you
mean,
say absolutely nothing?
Because he called me.
No,
care?
he said absolutely, Rabbi
And
said
you know, the
absolutely.
sex life of presidents does not occur to me. Apparently it occurs to Simon. Yes.
Well,
Solomon with other
Like I
than
said.
it's a human, it's
Whoever you are.
It's a human instinct, so.
What were you gonna say?
Yes, but he's in. No, never mind.
He's not-
Go ahead.
How are you, Rabbi Levy?
I'm fine. I'm fine.
Yeah,
I've been fine ever since I changed my name. Go ahead.
yeah. But I'm listening to your conversation and wondering, you know, I come from a different place. In general,
He means country.
the country is a different place.
I thought you come
It's an
from.
American
Go ahead,
accent.
go ahead.
Where I come from, we do not speak about our head of state in
Out of respect?
in a
No, out of
non-respectable manner. Now, I must also say our head of state would not quickly do the behavior, copy the behavior of the president of this country. But still, he's the president of this country, and addressing the head of state in a non-respectable way, where I'm from, is punishable on the law. You cannot speak ill of the head
Well,
of
that's
state,
why you don't
boy.
speak
It's not a
it.
Democrat.
and
That's your
disrespectful, and you don't do that.
You're not allowed.
And so I'm listening. You can say I disagree with this policy or with that policy. I understand that.
What if his behavior is corrupt, reprehensible, and were he a normal citizen, he
You
would be
can't say
punishable
Then
by law?
then there is law, and you know he has to be impeached. I think under the law, and
He won't be impeached.
and well, but you know you are innocent until your a court of law
guilty.
proves you guilty.
He's guilty.
And well, but
There's a paper trail.
huh?
There's a paper trail.
Solomon.
But that's a political opinion.
I
Rabbi.
understand. Listen, I understand what you're saying, and as others have said before, I respect the office of the presidency, and he's not the first lowlife to occupy the presidency.
No, hardly.
Okay.
A lot.
Let's see, who have we got? Millard Fillmore, John John
No, Polk was
Polk
good.
Knox.
No, Polk was good. You're talking about James Buchanan.
Yeah. Oh, U.S.
Warren
Grant.
Harding.
Yeah, they
Grant?
pardoned U.S.
All you
Grant
had to
because he
see
was a
today
war.
was
Wait,
that big
one
check.
at a time. One at a time. Okay,
Check.
Paul, and then Jeffrey, and then Ann. Yes.
Okay, we have a long history of mocking, making fun, and satirizing presidents. One of the most virulent well, they had cartoons in those days. Lincoln, no one was more vilified
Oh, yeah.
in his tenure in office than Lincoln was.
They
He
called
was
him a baboon.
portrayed as the most horrendous ways. But we respect the office, but we don't like the man. We don't like the person. We don't respect the person because he's in the office. We respect the office regardless of who the person is. But the person can be thrown out. And if this son of a bitch is going to be, he should be kicked out of office. In my
I think
opinion.
that
And there's no such thing as
But the next
innocent
2 years,
before.
they're
Wait.
As,
One at a time.
as prove, you don't have to prove the guilt of a president or any elected official in a court of law. we have something called the Court of Public Opinion,
Right.
which was
That's
very
what-
powerful in this country. And politicians will resign because they fear that Court of Public Opinion. So we don't have to do that in this country. Whether the Congress will impeach him or not, we don't know yet. But
What you don't have, though, in this
Wait.
country is a motion of no confidence. If, let's say, a country
Right.
all attached to Israel,
We don't have a parliamentary system.
Yeah.
We have a bicameral system.
yes.
Yes, Jeffrey, thank you.
I was just gonna say, anyone that had any doubts have just had to see the big check for $35,000
Yeah.
from the Trump organization to Cohen.
It was signed by Trump too.
No, his
Trump
son.
Jr.
His son.
Yeah.
No, it was signed by Donald Trump.
No, it was signed by Trump Jr. and somebody in the
I saw it tonight.
foundation and Trump Jr.
For the Pachechi.
I
And,
forget it.
okay, I don't know, do you want to do the Michael Cohen testimony? Because I think
Yeah.
everybody
I'm
has
sick
had
of
it.
it.
Okay, let's move on to
Can
different
I just say, I
stuff.
missed the part about his taxes.
What happened to the taxes?
I don't know if I have
lied-
anything.
he
He has,
lied.
I
he
didn't
exaggerated his net worth so he could get on the Forbes list, and then
That's
he
nothing new.
reduced it so he wouldn't have to pay as much tax.
Everybody in New York City knew he didn't have, there was a big deal with him and Forbes. They had a major argument.
Well, his
Yeah.
golf course in New
Yeah.
York, is it in Brooklyn?
I didn't hear any of
but
this.
yeah.
It was paid
so
for
I
by
can't-
the city,
Public funds,
public funds.
and then he,
Also the ice rink.
And
And
then
then
he
he-
put it on for his assets.
right,
No, right.
and then.
There's
Okay,
some-
don't you want to go
Right,
to,
right.
don't you want to go to Vietnam?
No,
Isn't
wait,
it
yeah.
cool?
Talk
Let's
about
go.
sex,
Very
religion.
interesting about the
Rock and roll.
some of the buildings, the co-ops in New York that had Trump names, where
Right.
Yeah.
the people who live there want to remove
Yeah.
his name
Yes.
from
Right.
all of these buildings.
There's
Yes.
a lot of them right on the west side.
Yes,
I mean,
okay,
no,
one more, and then I
double deck.
swear we're moving on,
Okay.
really.
You know, when Nixon was impeached, there were people that still were on Nixon's side. This is the same way with Trump. People are still with him 100%.
Oh, yeah.
So even though,
But his base is shrinking.
I don't know about
I
that.
don't know, guaranteed
I
we
don't
ran
know
next
about
week
that.
when,
It's scary because
Very
people
scary.
don't let go of what they
like to do.
unless it's,
Well, one of the great American rights is to be as stupid as you wish. So let's talk about
So-
what they're having for dinner. Here we go.
Where?
In
any
Vietnam,
place.
they're at the Hotel Metropole, which has a hashgacha.
What's that?
You can eat there if you're kosher.
Oh, okay.
Very few
Really?
people know that. Yes, Vietnam is the only place in Southeast Asia with a hashgacha provided by the
Oh,
OU.
I can go there.
I made it up.
Is that where you feel like eating?
Okay,
go in, you
but I
probably
had
have
you
to-
going, didn't I have you going?
Yeah, my
Everybody's off to Vietnam now.
I
Okay,
can't
right.
eat there, it's
That
only
room is
OU.
locked.
There you
It
go.
isn't K-Cuff.
That's right, there you go. Okay, let's see, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who I swear the other night with Jake Tapper, I love Jake Tapper because he's an old yeshiva bacher, and apparently Pompeo's opinion was different from Trump, and Tapper said, but your boss says X, and Pompeo says, yes, that is correct, but I say Y. But he didn't say it that way directly. What we are seeing here, and as an English teacher, I respect the language very much. We are seeing the corruption of language, such as you find in George Orwell's 1984. Okay, war is peace, truth is lies, all that business. It's a very unfortunate development. So I'll give you the menu, because I know you're curious. They started with shrimp cocktail, but you know, it
Joe
wasn't
Kosher.
real shrimp. No, it wasn't real
It's
shrimp.
made out of turkey like
What
in
they
the
did
field.
was they took whitefish and they curled it. It's very hard to teach a whitefish to curl. No, that's not true. A grilled sirloin and pear kimchi entree, and you're going to like the dessert, all you chocoholics. Chocolate lava cake for dessert.
Oh, that's good.
All of it washed down with non-alcoholic dried persimmon punch. Trump famously doesn't drink, but Kim likes to drink. Earlier this week, Dutch border officials, there you go, thank you to Holland, seized $90,000 bottles of vodka believed to be destined for Kim and other high officials. Do they have Dutch vodka?
Yes. Kettle One.
Oh, see,
Kettle
I
One
don't
That's
doesn't in this
not vodka.
country.
That's
It is
not
vodka.
vodka?
No, Ketel One is Geneva.
Oh, Geneva. That's gin.
And I have a bottle of Kettle One on my
That's
car someone
gin.
gave me today. It's vodka.
Everyone else thinks
It's like
Vodka.
when FDR, there's FDR, okay, when he made our first president who was able to make a very dry martini, what you do is you pour the gin, because they didn't have they had vodka, but they didn't drink it, and they kind of wave the vermouth over it.
Right.
Oh,
That's
okay.
a very
Whisper
dry
them
martini.
both over the glass.
Does that it?
It's a
Okay.
very dry martini.
A very
Like
dry
a nice
martini. Okay, and there's a
Right
great
drop.
line,
Right
there's a
drop.
great line. This is Robert Benchley.
drop.
Robert Benchley leaves the Algonquin, and it's pouring like it was earlier this evening. And he goes home and he says to his butler, he says, John, he says, get me out of these wet clothes and into a dry martini. So, okay. All right, now I know,
Excuse me, Rabbi,
yes,
the way you talked about the food, it sounded like it was a kosher restaurant they were
it's
in.
not, I was lying.
You were being funny,
Yes, I was making a funny.
funny.
You see
Yes.
how I take you seriously?
You're very sweet. Well, if you're taking me
You know, Kim
seriously,
brought all the food.
what?
Kim brought all the food with him, with chefs and
I wouldn't eat
everything.
his
He
stuff.
doesn't,
No, but
His
Trump
own
is
pots,
so
his own
paranoid.
plates.
Trump will not eat anything that hasn't been tasted or tested. That's why he's so
well,
big.
neither is Kim.
This is the truth. Why he's
All
so
potatoes.
big
And
on fast food. Because there's so much speed involved in preparing and serving the food, there's very little chance that he will be poisoned. That is the God's truth, okay? That's a presidential
Is that
power.
God's truth or your truth?
No, that is God's truth, all right?
Kettle One vodka.
It is vodka.
Of course it's vodka.
I know, I just bought it yesterday with
Let
my
me see.
daughter.
Are you gonna pass it around, I hope?
Somebody gave it to me today, coincidentally.
Joy.
More graft.
Is that actual
Should I
size,
go get some
Solomon?
cups?
Yes.
That's a small bottle.
You got
That
one of
bottle,
these
why don't we
big-
pour
one
it
of
with
these
vodka,
big
it'll get bigger. Okay, we have a temple trip planned, and I changed the destination. Creswell Crags in the East Midlands in central England, okay? Because they've discovered caves with witches' marks.
Send pictures.
I got pictures right here. The printer was doing a little mishigas, so it didn't really, I got a lot of green
We're out
here.
of ink. It's no black ink left, that's why.
Oh, is that it?
Yes.
And there were 2 cartridges, and the thing takes 4. So I switched the 2 I had, and the machine printed. And then it said, I'm not going to print anymore because my cartridges are dry. And I said, I can't be your rabbi. So it said,
Good
why don't you
choice.
go to class? All right, these marks, no relation to me, ward off evil influences. Here's one mark. It's VV. What does VV stand for?
Vazmir.
No.
You know, close.
Happy VM.
VV stands
A
for the
W?
Virgin Mary, Mary being the Virgin of Virgins. Okay, there was nobody virginier than she.
Uh-huh. Not
Okay.
even in the next
So the
house.
VV means
No.
very virgin?
Very virgin. Virgin of Virgins. Wait, there's another one. PM. What's PM?
Postmortem.
Postmortem.
Nighttime.
Thank you, Leland.
That was
That
was
a
when she-
newspaper back in the
Here.
40s.
That's right, very left wing.
What?
PM is Pace Maria. You're
Yes.
asking the Virgin Mary for peace. So whoever these witches were, oh, they're keeping away the widges.
The witches.
The witches.
Did you drink?
Did you give him
All
any?
right.
Depends how you translate it.
Doreen,
Says what?
did you give him any?
You want
I
some? You want to drink
cannot
this? Not listen to these
emphasize.
people?
See, I love England. I really love England. Because
They
in
speak
this
English.
country, if somebody is,
Sometimes.
they don't speak English.
They throw
If
the
some-
marbles in their mouth.
If somebody is Meshuggah in this country, we put them away and we give them medication. In England, they put them in a university and make them head of a department. Okay?
Speaking about that,
Yes.
I don't know if everyone has the same issue, but you know, I like to watch a lot of these British dramas, and I can't watch them without closed caption
Captions,
because
right.
half
You
missed
the
the word-
time I
I-
have no idea
Idea
what
what
they're
they're
saying.
saying.
We had that.
I just said they speak with marbles in their mouth.
Yes.
The whole
yes.
other
Yes.
stuff.
Just
the
a-
whole other
Yes.
stuff.
Just,
Wait,
I just had
Doreen.
to comment. We had offices all over the world, company I retired from, and a lot of offices in England, and they call and I'd say, speak English, I can't understand you.
Right.
I couldn't understand a word they said.
Right.
You know, every day they take one marble out of their mouth.
I still
When they
can't.
lose all their marbles, they're American.
When Aunt Beth and I, we had been to France, we had been to Spain, obviously we didn't understand. Then we were going to England. She said, I'm so happy we're going to England. I said, why? She said, so I'll understand what they say. It's my girl from Brooklyn, okay? All right.
Did she?
Anyway, we get out of the plane. We leave Gatwick, whatever it was. We get into one of those famous black British taxi cabs, and the guy turns around and goes, she said, what did he say? I said, he wanted to know the name of the hotel. Okay.
How'd you get that one?
We went to the Hotel Julius Caesar because it went back to his time, and it was disgusting. It was
They have a
so
lot of
bad.
disgusting
How
stuff.
bad
Right.
was it?
It was so bad. There were French
It
fries.
wasn't
There were
so
French
bad.
fries on the floor. I know, chips. So we go downstairs and we're schlepping along. It's hot as blazes. It was 83. It was like the hottest
And they don't have
summer in the history of
You were
Europe.
there when my sister was there. That's
The,
literally the hottest summer.
The beefeaters, not the beefeaters, the guy with the bearskin hats.
Yeah.
Wait,
Okay, the
The
soldiers
guards.
with the bearskin hats, the
Yeah.
Coldstream Guards, they were fainting away dead on the lawn of Buckingham Palace because you can't wear a fur hat in the heat. And Evan says, oh good, stand over there, it's a British double-decker bus, I'll take your picture. I stood next to it, I think my skin was peeling. Anyway, we go to a travel agent and he puts us in the Victoria Hotel, which was not bad. It wasn't bad. It was literally went back to the time of Queen Victoria, and there was a lovely sign in the bathroom. The bathroom was bigger than this room. And off in the corner was a little tiny shower and a little tiny loo. And on the wall there was a sign that said, do not get water on the floor. And I'm saying, what kind of bathroom is this? So it was an
Did you
adventure.
have mushy peas?
They were
But how
telling
I
you
don't
how
think-
about
in
in
the-
No, what we
How
had
about
was,
in the deep south. Do you understand that dialogue?
well, I lived there for 6 years.
No,
Um,
not the deep south, not Fayetteville.
Deep south.
Not Fayetteville.
I've seen all the movies. Well, I'll tell you one more story. So we go out to a restaurant. I think it was an Indian place, because British cooking is mostly boiled. And we just sit there and wait and wait and wait. And finally the waiter comes over and we said, why don't you just automatically put a glass of water with some ice in it in front of the person when they sit down? He says, there's no profit in it. They wanted to sell you a Guinness. Okay?
warm.
You have to understand, Rabbi,
Yes.
that in both the European continent as well as the British Isle,
Yes.
which is not Europe, they had the Brexit and they have
They're not,
always
that's
been
not a
Too
good deal.
nice.
and always been divided by water and mentality and everything else in England.
He doesn't like the British.
I'm sorry,
You don't like the British?
I didn't say that.
Oh, okay.
You know.
Something about mentality.
But they are different. And,
Oh, of course.
so
The British are a funny race.
Yes.
but
That's a
these
book.
things are just different, and I wouldn't say good or bad, but different.
Yes.
And so every place has a, when you go to Texas, they also speak in English, which I find sometimes very hard to understand and
Exactly.
comprehend.
Yes.
That's what Renee's
It's
saying.
they sing in it, and that's how you all.
Yeah. When I was in Houston for a rabbis conference, not rabbis, a Hebrew school teachers conference. Of course, I'm a rabbi too. But anyway, first the water supply went, and there were pools of water all over the hotel, so they switched us. But the first night I got there, and I'm starving to death, I said to the doorman, I said, where is there a fish restaurant? So he points. And I said, okay, I'll walk there. He says, don't you want me to call you a cab? And I'm walking and walking and walking.
You should have
And my New York sense kicks in and says, what a great place to get mugged. Then I realized you cannot get mugged in Houston, Texas, because the mugger, everybody drives. The mugger would have to drive up to you, hold out the gun, steal your wallet, and drive away.
It's a possibility.
Nobody walks. Nobody
Oh, it's
walks.
very hot in Houston.
And humid.
I
I thought you hate fish.
My daughter,
Humid in here.
Oh no, this was the summer.
and
I
then,
was down
and
in
then they
Houston.
have the underground tunnels that you walk through.
In Houston?
Yeah.
No.
That's
My
like
do-
Canada?
yeah, my daughter lived there for a year.
That's
What are
scary
those,
at
what are
night.
those
What
for?
was there now?
That because it's so hot.
Yeah,
Oh.
like in Canada, when it's so cold, they have the
Yeah.
underground.
I'm sorry, Elaine?
No, I said, in Canada, they have the underground because it's so cold.
Right.
Yes, right.
And there they have, which
And
is
it's-
quite
Yeah, the underground mall in Montreal.
Very,
Right.
no,
Right.
it's
Right.
Strata.
Because my
It's
son
not
lived
like
there for a
this.
year.
Yeah,
It's
I believe it.
Strata.
All right, let's talk about everybody's favorite lawyer, Alan Dershowitz.
Ah.
Alan.
Because as we know, Mr. Netanyahu is in trouble, and Mr. Netanyahu and Mr. Trump, see, I called him Mr. Solomon, have a bromance. Do you know a bromance?
What's a
Yeah.
A
bromance?
bromance is
They
their
grow
bros.
together.
The
Oh,
brothers.
They really like
Oh,
each
it's a
other.
Rose man.
A bromance.
I
Bro.
gotcha.
Okay.
They're
Bro.
brothers.
Anyway,
Brotherly role.
except
Under the
that
skin.
Mr. Netanyahu is being accused of all kinds of terrible things,
I like that.
accepting gifts of cigars and champagne
And watches.
and watches too.
Yeah, they're,
Yeah.
they're big gold watch.
Is it one of those watches like I got for my bar mitzvah with
No.
the Hebrew letters?
No, you should be
It was
so
only a
lucky to have
$5
that.
watch.
It was a
No.
Rolex.
I wore it in the
Yeah,
rain.
it
It
must be a
died.
Rolex.
No,
Okay.
It is a Rolex.
You don't sell
All
your
right,
soul for
anyway.
anything
It was
less.
a Rolex.
It was a Rolex.
Dershowitz says he has done nothing illegal, not even the garden furniture. You heard about the garden
Oh,
furniture.
yes.
Yes, okay.
That's his wife.
Right.
right.
Well, she's in more trouble than he is.
Yeah.
Okay, Dershowitz says, and because since he retired, where did he teach? NYU?
Harvard.
Harvard. Oh, excuse me. Harvard. Since he retired, he has so much time, and he has nothing to do but pass judgment on things. And my problem is, I don't know if you have this problem, but I tend to agree with the last person I read. And that can be very dangerous if it's Dershowitz. Dershowitz, his first book, Chutzpah, you remember his first book, Chutzpah? Well, I heard him read from it because he was friends with the president of the temple in Newburyport, so we all went down and we listened to him. And the story he told that I really like is this. He's going to a BTA, and I went to MTA. Of course, we went different years because he's much older than I am. But the whole thing was, the rule in the Brooklyn Talmudical Academy was if you played basketball, competitive basketball, you had to wear a yarmulke, which is why God invented thumbtacks. Actually, bobby pins, okay? MTA, Manhattan Talmudical Academy in those days, you did not have to wear a yarmulke. So what happens is the boys are facing off, and you realize you're talking about a bunch of midgets, because Jewish players are not that tall, all right? And when the referee blew the whistle and threw the ball up for the tip-off, every BTA guy, because Dershowitz was going to BTA, every BTA guy turned, MTA had to wear the yarmulkes, snatched the yarmulke off the head of his opponent and flipped it across the court. So while the MTA players scrambled for their yarmulkes, Dershowitz's team made a basket. Ta-da!
Did
All right.
Dershowitz play
That's like the
basketball?
Patriots.
Yes, he did.
Did he?
He did.
Yeah, sure. Everybody in
He's an
BTA.
egomaniac, so.
You don't need to be an
He
egomaniac
was
to play
just
basketball.
He was just
No,
in
but that's what he is.
Miami at Hanukkah. Remember they gave him the Hasidic group down there gave him
An award?
some kind of honor.
Yeah.
He's not Hasidic. He's not religious.
I'm not him. They brought him down.
Oh, as the guest speaker.
But his person shouldn't be the subject. I read the article
Which article? This article?
by Mr.
Alan
Dershowitz
Dershowitz publishes
about
all-
Prime Minister Netanyahu.
Yes, good. Tell us what you think.
So, and I happen to know a little bit Mr. Netanyahu, having worked for him. But I think you have to be very careful if under Israeli law.
Am I denigrating an Israeli head of state now?
He's not the head of state,
Glad you're
he's the prime
consistent.
minister.
Well, you know.
Yeah,
what I
he's
mean.
not the- he's
I
not the
know what's his
president.
name is the president.
But
Yeah.
it's the same.
Right.
So,
But the president in Israel, he cuts the ribbon at the Walmart.
No, but if you disobey, either you're the president or the prime minister in Israel, the law,
Yes.
it's a parliamentary system, so he can be voted out of office. And so
Oh, we could vote
the
your
question,
party out of
the
office.
question I think Mr. Dershowitz is asking is either what the deeds of Mr. Netanyahu will lead to a situation where the Knesset will vote him out of office. Now there are elections taking place. So
Don't they
every-
just collapse the government? Don't they give a no confidence vote to the government?
Yes, but in the case that there is a no confidence vote of the government stays in power.
Yeah, of course.
It's called governing demissionaire. And so without being, they're acting prime minister and acting ministers.
So they
but
voted
they
him out
still
of,
stay-
You're saying they did vote him out of office.
No, they didn't
haven't
vote.
done it, but they could.
They could vote him out
Okay.
of office, but that means that he can only take care of the day-to-day affairs and not of new laws. You cannot implement new laws.
Who does
that
the
would
new
be,
laws?
Take a government.
You have to
Yes.
wait till the new government is in place. So what
What if
happens
it's really
is,
important?
so the moment
What if
the
the
election,
Russians are attacking?
well, you're trying to joke. This
No,
is
I
not a
want to
joke.
know. I'm just curious. What a
No,
caretaker
so,
government can do.
Is it, so if the prime minister is doing, or the president of the state, after they go out of office, they can be. Mr. Olmert went into prison.
Yes.
What was the name of the president? There was a
Then or
president
now?
a few years ago.
Oh, I don't know. I don't remember.
He went
It
into
wasn't
prison.
Perez.
No, it was the one before Paris. Went to prison because he touched a lady, and
I don't remember that.
well, that happens that
We
you.
don't have Arthur here to give us a whole.
So
Where's
Katsina, I
Arthur
think
and
was
I
his name.
tonight?
Katsir.
Katsir.
Yes.
So yeah, I think it was that one, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
So he was arrested, and there was a trial.
Olmert was arrested.
Olmert was also
He was
arrested.
just released.
Also for cigars and things like
It's
that,
always cigars.
and Cuban ones. But
Of course.
look, it's a system of law. It's a parliamentary democracy.
Yes. Yes.
So they get, if they do something wrong, they go to prison. In America, that is different. It is the Senate and the House which come to that ordeal.
Okay.
It's not a court of law.
All right. Well, this is the
Yes,
the
cigar got
Israeli
Clinton in trouble,
Knesset.
too.
That was I didn't do that
Did you
one.
just
I
say
didn't do
different?
that
A
one.
cigar got Clinton in trouble.
I didn't do that one.
Differently.
Okay. Dershowitz. What does Dershowitz say? Because on the one hand, you have the Israeli government. On the other hand, you have Alan Dershowitz, who speaks with the voice of God. And he says to bring down a duly elected prime minister on the basis of an expansive and unprecedented application of a broad and expandable criminal statute endangers democracy. Okay? And this is case 1,000. There's cases 1, 2, 3, and 4,000. Netanyahu is accused of handing out favors in return for gifts, cigars and champagne from friends. That's pretty cheap. He couldn't have held out for a
Poor
car.
country.
This is Israel.
I know it's still poor country. compared to the rest of
Dershowitz
the world.
wrote, there's no applicable law that defines the line of what would constitute bribery in this case. That is very clever, okay? What is bribery, okay? In this instance, there is a bribery law, and the prime minister is not allowed to accept bribes. But Dershowitz says it's too
What
broad.
country are they allowed to accept bribes?
When are they allowed to accept
What
bribes?
country? Who accepts
What country
bribes?
are they allowed to accept bribes?
What country?
USA.
Well, in the United States, if Trump were offered a bribe, he would have taken it.
But he's not the
But
only
he's
one.
not supposed to.
No, they are
accept the
attacking him
bribe.
on all minor things. I mean, his wife, when there were guests
Garden
at their house,
furniture.
instead of having their own cook cooking the meal,
Right.
they ordered it from a restaurant and they asked back the money from the restaurant they ordered the food from. It's
Okay.
all so minor.
Yes, let's move on to something totally non-controversial. The Israelis put a spacecraft into orbit. Not
Right.
orbit, they're sending it
Yes.
to the
To the
moon.
moon.
It is unmanned. It is also unwomanned. It does, however, have a mezuzah in the appropriate place. Okay. And it's experiencing technical difficulties. It's called Breshit, which means
In the beginning.
Genesis, yes, very good. It is the Jewish state's first lunar spacecraft, and Israel is the smallest state to put up a spacecraft in the history of humanity. There were some technical difficulties. They were going to do a maneuver, but they canceled it. There's Israel Aerospace Industries. The organizations that spearheaded the project are currently examining the data to understand what went wrong. They are not taking the normal Jewish response to this crisis, which is to run around waving your hands. They're actually looking at the data. And the lander will be captured by the moon's gravitational field, and it will land in the Sea of Serenity on April 11, which is a wonderful place for a Jewish spacecraft, to be in the Sea of Serenity. I wish we could all be in the Sea of Serenity. Okay.
The
I don't want
problem
to-
is it can't fire its rockets on Shabbos.
Okay. No, wait. If it starts before Shabbos, it can just go on.
Slow fire.
Yes, and what about the law of gravity? Do you
Actually,
suggest
they
that
did launch it on a Thursday, so it's okay.
Do you suggest the law of gravity is suspended for this spacecraft?
Absolutely.
It can't be. They need to be pulled into the moon's
Atmosphere.
gravitational
No
field.
atmosphere.
Okay? Now, I know all about these things because I saw Flash Gordon 3 times. Flash Gordon was better. Queen did the soundtrack. Okay. Now, why would, if this is such a long shot, this is the long shot department, do you think that Bernie Sanders has a chance of becoming president?
No.
Yes, because now he's a
But he
Democrat.
better not split
Right.
the vote.
He's not,
He's a Democrat?
Yes,
He's running
change his
Oh,
party.
as a
man.
Democrat.
Yeah, Democrat. Yeah, he is.
He's a Democrat.
They say this
He said
is the
socialist
Forward,
is what he
and the
described
Forward
himself.
recently went out of business, and yet miraculously it keeps publishing online. I have no idea how it does that. I don't know who's paying
It's a
them.
miracle.
But don't you see?
It doesn't
It's
cost anything
related
to
to the
publish
Israeli
online.
spacecraft.
No, Trump is paying for it.
What?
Trump is paying for it.
For the Forward?
Yeah.
Leland, I hear some bitterness in your
Okay.
voice about Trump. I'm really
A Bernie
surprised.
Sanders presidency would strike a blow against anti-Semitism.
Oh.
Seriously.
Believe
No.
that.
He's
No.
in favor of BDS, DBS, whatever the hell you call it.
BDS.
Yeah, he's in
But
favor
that's
of that.
Israel. That's not America.
It's still about being a Jew and supporting.
It's a bad thing.
He's a
But, you
politician.
know,
He's looking for the Jews.
Everybody talks about
Well,
BDS.
You don't want to do
What
any
is
business with
BDS?
Israel.
BDS is boycott, divest, and sanction.
Against
It means you
Israel.
should not buy Israeli products. You should not patronize. Oh, only Israeli products which are made in the West Bank. Isn't that correct?
I'm not sure. I
I
don't know
think
enough
it's the
about
West
it.
Bank. That's what happened to
Where will I buy
SodaStream.
these products?
What? SodaStream. SodaStream is a spritz. SodaStream. See, this is back when I was in college, Ann. We used to go to the Bowery before the Bowery
I know
became
that.
very
I'm sorry.
desirable. And we would tell the restaurant supply guy that we need nitrous oxide cartridges
To make seltzer.
to make seltzer. But we didn't put the nitrous oxide cartridges in the seltzer.
You snuck
We
them.
put them into
You
ourselves.
inhaled it.
You put it in a balloon.
You talk
And then
funny.
you put the balloon in
Like
your
Donald
mouth.
Duck.
Because college students can be trusted to do really stupid things. Okay, yes, Jeff.
When it comes to BTS, there was a very cute cartoon on Facebook the other day. Guy's in the hospital bed, and there's 2 doctors, and one doctor says, "We're going to have to release you because you support BDS. The pharmaceuticals you need were produced in Israel. The equipment we used was built in Israel, so we're going to just have to send you home."
You know, Ann Landers did that years ago. She said if you're an anti-Semite, you can't use penicillin, you can't get a polio
Soft
vaccine,
things,
yeah,
yeah,
because they were all invented by Jews. Anyway, why would a Bernie Sanders presidency strike a blow against anti-Semitism?
It wouldn't.
Because, I know, but I'm just reading the article. Really, Jerry, I don't...
He said it, not me.
Oh, all
Since I'm
right.
like already.
But did you agree with him?
They
I
put it
never
together
agreed.
long
Don't
enough,
agree with
right?
him. Okay. Let's
We
see.
have a white dog. He tells me it's black. You know.
Barack Obama became president, and immediately they started hauling out the racist conspiracy theories, demonizing him as a Muslim, an atheist, or a non-citizen. Now, Sanders is not an atheist, he is not observant, and as far as supporting Israel with the BDS business, he did work in Israel in the 50s on a kibbutz for a number of months.
But he is publicly supporting BDS. He is in favor of J Street. He took the people from J Street to do in his last campaign.
Thank you. Tell us your position and in what Zionist
J Street?
organization.
What is Jason?
But I'm not talking as in that
No, I just
position.
want you
I'm
to
talking
tell
as
me.
an independent.
Just so we'll get some
I'm a general
clarification.
Zionist. But,
A what? I'm sorry,
I'm
general
a general
Zionist.
Zionist. So non,
Really? That's
Yeah.
kind of left wing.
no,
What does that mean?
non-partisan.
General Zionist. There's so many dozens of Israeli political parties.
This is not an Israeli political party anymore. It was the Liberal Party.
I'm sorry.
It used to be the Liberal Party, which used to be, but that's another subject. Staying with Mr. Sanders.
Yes.
And so Mr. Sanders in his last campaign had J Street people advising him on
J
foreign
Street
affairs.
is J Street is a left wing organization that is in favor of
On J
peace
Street.
between Israel and the Palestinians. They are not so radical as a Jewish Voice for Peace, which has taken positions against Israel. You see, Jews make the best anti-Semites. Go ahead.
Yeah, but on the other hand, so that being one side of the story. On the other hand, I think there are wonderful things Mr. Sanders stands for. I voted for him, to tell you the truth, in the primaries in the Democratic Party, and I would not have voted for him for president.
Well, I
Because of the foreign affairs, because I'm a Jew and Israel comes first, so I could not have voted for Mr. Sanders. But, when it comes for standing against
Wait a second,
corporate power,
who's corporate power?
In America, there's a lot of corporate power. There are people you could see in the news.
Bernie Sanders is a democratic socialist.
Well, I wouldn't be. Yeah, he identifies as a socialist. But there is a situation, to give you an example, which
I'll
we
get
saw
to
in the
that
news the
today.
past few days, for people who are dying because they cannot afford insulin. They are diabetic
That was a
type 1.
different. I have that article. Okay.
And he is a person who stands in favor of helping those people. So there are many good things also about Mr. Sanders.
So you're voting for him?
No,
No, I just told you.
Yes, Renee.
Well, I just asked.
After this, I promise we're getting away
Just
from
asked
politics.
the
We're gonna
question,
die from
and you said
politics.
Israel comes first.
When did I
Before
say
this
this?
country?
Huh?
You said Israel comes first, before this country?
Before
no,
Bernie
American,
Sanders.
before Mr. Sanders.
Yes.
As a Jew. I'm a Jew.
Okay.
Oh.
All right. Who doesn't like Oprah?
After that look, no
Oh,
one's
Leland,
gonna
don't do this
admit
to
it.
me. Okay, but wait, I'm not focusing on Oprah.
or Leland.
I'm
Racist.
focusing on what is now known as WW, which is not the
Weight
Virgin Mary
Watchers.
twice. It is Weight Watchers. Now, Weight Watchers moved away
Let's
from
talk
their
about fat.
primary mission, which was making fat Americans thinner. Okay? And they moved into the idea of eating healthy and following nutrition and
Since she
having the
purchased
right thing and
the
cutting back
sunflower.
on your carbs. Okay? No more chocolate-covered potato chips.
Ah,
But they are failing miserably, and their stock has gone down, and Oprah owns a great deal of their
She lost
stock.
a lot of money.
Now she lost 58 million,
Oh,
which is
my
nickel and dime chump change for
It doesn't
Oprah.
matter, it's still money.
Because she has 3.5 billion, wait Toby, because the stock went down, she could buy more of it.
And then it'll go up and she'll more
Right.
than
Make
even
more
enough.
money.
So this is when I
Insider
was
trading.
a newlywed. We were living in Canarsie, and there was a rival of Weight Watchers called Weigh In. It was founded by Sophie Sokoloff, who had been one of Jean Neidich's very intimate friends and colleagues, but then she stole the entire program and went off on her own merry way.
Who's Jean Neidish?
Yeah,
Jean Neidich
Weight
founded
Watchers.
Weight
She
Watchers.
was the founder.
Okay?
The founder of Weight.
Yes, exactly. Anyway, so my mother-in-law and I would go to the weekly meetings. And Sophie Sokoloff fell in love with me because I was 27 and she must have been in her 60s in those days. And I was the only male person in the entire meeting. And every night she would begin the meetings with her customary war cry, "Hello, pilgrims, your search has ended." And David, how much weight did you lose? Now the fact is I hadn't lost that much weight because I noticed that Canarsie is the land of delicatessens, plus original pizza, allo original. When we left New York, we had left a pizza behind us. And one day I hope to return to Canarsie
You'll find
and
it.
claim that pizza. It'll be a little stale, but that's okay.
Maybe they'll
stale
replace
New
it.
York pizza is better than
Right.
fresh Florida pizza.
Okay.
A Florida
Right.
pizza's terrible.
So anyway, that was my
I could tell you where
experience.
to get good
So if you want to buy stock in Weight Watchers, now is the time to do it.
What's
Call letters WW.
What's
What?
its price today, you know?
Like 6 and change.
Oh.
No, not penny stock. It's not penny stock yet.
Okay.
It
Oh
goes down
God,
to
here
penny
comes.
worth.
We've got politics
Sorry, right?
again. Mr. Netanyahu. This is going back to. It says today, February 27.
Today.
Okay. What was I doing on?
Today.
Oh, it is
Today.
Today.
Oh no, I printed it on February 27.
Yes.
He went to Moscow. Netanyahu went to Moscow, and he said to Putin, Israel will continue hitting Iran and Syria. Now you know, number one, Syria is a mess. Number two, there are all these different warring tribes, you could call them. Number three, one of the most difficult and virulent is Hezbollah, which is backed by Iran, with officers, with commanders, with weapons, with the whole schmear. and there was a problem. Now, Putin did say, and historically, if you know your history, Russia has always been trying to get into the Middle East. Well, now they're there to stay. And so, I never get to use this word. It behooves Israel to make nicey nice with Russia. And Putin promised that he would keep Iran away from the Israeli border, which is a big deal, because this is in light of an incident that took place. Apparently, there was a Russian reconnaissance jet that was coming too close to Israel. So Israel sent up a drone and shot it down. And this made a great deal of scandal for the Netanyahu government. But Mr. Netanyahu said that he and Putin have met 11 times since 2016. So everything is okie dokie between Israel and Russia.
He and Trump and Putin, they're good.
Trump has nothing to do with it. Because I'm not speaking about Trump anymore, because he is a head of state, and I have the highest respect for him and whatever he's going to do when he gets out of office.
If he gets out.
I hope he's in a place where everybody wears the same outfit, and they have. Oh, he gets his wall.
Something to match his complexion.
Right.
It's orange.
But
said
this
something
is
to
good
match
news.
He's talking to the Orientals,
Asians, Orientals are right. I told you that, Leland.
Oh no, Orientals. That's a rug.
I told him that. It's politically
He
incorrect.
said Oriental.
But all the
He called them
Asians still have the
Orientals.
sign up.
Oriental
Oriental market.
Doesn't matter.
They don't change the sign.
They should change it to the Asian market.
That's
right.
All right, Jerry, if you're going there, I hope you refer to it as the Asian market, irregardless of what the sign is saying. I had to throw that in. Okay.
For whom it
No, but
regardless.
seriously, I love Israel. I really love
It's a
Israel.
word, but irregardless is
I love Israel, and I think you'll be glad to know that Israel is not getting recognized by the Arab states, but they're kind of going in the back door. I have here a picture of Mr. Netanyahu shaking hands with the foreign minister of Oman. And that's not a bad thing, because Oman is where the oil is, among other places, okay? And they vowed to seize the future. And you could tell that the foreign minister is very serious about this, because he's wearing the same kind of fur Russian hat that I wore when I was bar
That's
mitzvah.
sweet.
Okay?
Yeah.
So we'll
But
pass
they went
that
out
around.
of the way. It's a misleading thing
What
because
is that?
the Sudan went the next day out. But they were at a gathering,
Yes.
and organizers of that gathering made a mistake and put the Israelis next to each other. Then when the Israeli delegation leader
Yes.
wanted to speak, the microphone wasn't working, and as a gentleman, the gentleman from Sudan offered his microphone. But
one
then
work?
they went out of the way the next hours to say that this was all a mistake and you shouldn't come to wrong conclusions.
All right, look. You know it's going to be 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But I really think, since
I
it's...
think it's one step forward and
Wait,
two
wait.
steps back.
No. Israel is the big dog on the block. They have the 5th strongest army in the entire world. They're something like number 3 or 4 in terms of arms exports. As a matter of fact, that business between India and Pakistan, when an Indian pilot flew a warplane over Pakistani territory, the Pakistanis brought it down with an Israeli weapon. So I don't think that's exact. I've always said I would rather be part of a people who say love justice and practice mercy and walk humbly, as opposed to a submachine gun that can fit into a briefcase. But we don't make this world. We just want to live in it. And Israel is the attack dog for the Jewish people. That's the way it is. So let's talk about something we can all agree about. Cholent. Now,
Sholom.
we don't get cold weather down here, but I want us to describe the best cholent we ever had.
What is cholent?
It's like
What is cholent? Cholent originally got its name from either the French word chaud, which means warm, or shul ent, temple is over. And in Europe, what they would do is this. The children would take the 3/4 cooked cholent and put it in the baker's oven, because the baker's oven would be put out for Shabbat, but the warmth would remain. So the baker's oven would cook the cholent. Anybody have a cholent story? It's like a Jewish mulligan stew.
I
Isn't
don't
it
know
like
that
a
it's a
bris-
story, all I know is it's in a
It's a
very slow,
Yes.
pot roast or piece.
It's a meat though.
It's
Of course
fatty.
it's meat. Now,
Why didn't it?
ironically, well, let's hear from the other people before I open
like
my
a
mouth.
black
Go ahead, Jeffrey. Jeffrey has a cholent
I
story.
had two best cholents. One was my grandmother's,
That's very nice.
and the other was at the Chabad on 41st Street in Miami Beach.
Very good. You know
Well,
you're
I
not
missed
supposed to
that,
mention
Jeffrey.
Chabad in this temple.
Oh, it was a Jewish place on 41st Street. I went.
That was your favorite?
Oh,
After
No, his
grandma's.
grandmother's.
my,
That'd be
no,
his
my grandmother was first, but
Yes.
this one came very close,
Yes.
and they have it every Saturday.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do. Every Saturday.
No, they stopped. I
Take
called
the
them
hint,
up.
You're kidding. I'm never going back.
Well, there
I
you
have to
go.
call Neil and tell him I don't go anymore.
All right. Anybody else have a cholent story?
Chilling?
I don't
Okay,
even know what
cholent.
it
Cholent. Cholent.
Got
Cholent.
beans and
Isn't
lentils.
it a
Yes.
fatty meat though?
Cholent, yes. What kind of meat do you put into cholent?
Sheep
I think it's chuck.
Flonkin.
Flonkin?
Flonkin.
That's a really hoo-ha. What? Chuck, it is chuck.
Yeah.
Because it's going to cook forever. Okay, Jerry, I'm
Cooks
sorry,
forever,
what?
yeah.
No, I was telling Paul, the first I ever heard of Chilla was from his wife.
Oh, isn't that
And he
lovely?
said he never had it.
Now, she never ate it in the CHABAD, did she?
Who?
Rita.
What's this Shabbat-y thing?
Shabbat. Okay, listen. My mother would go, let her rest in peace. My mother was a horrible cook. Her mother was a horrible cook.
But to make good
And
cholent.
I assume, I didn't know her cooking, but my great-grandmother on my mother's side was a horrible cook too.
Long family.
My father's side
How
was
did you
not
get
that
so
good anyway.
chubby?
Amazing, isn't it?
His
Renee!
wife knows how to
Luckily, I
cook.
lived in a city where there was outside food available. Okay, shh, but let me tell you.
I think he's adorable, but.
Thank you. Yes, like the howdy doody bouncing clown. All right,
That's
anyway.
Clarabelle.
Solomon, they're insulting me. Okay, anyway,
As we
aren't
get
you
older,
going to
we let
spring
little
to
babies.
my
Solomon is not
defense?
chubby.
Leave him alone. Come on. All right.
Seriously? Come on.
Anyway, challenge. Shh. My mother would go on these binges where she would cook the same thing over and over and over again. So it got to the point where every Shabbat she was making a cholent. She even went so far as to put a dough in the bottom of the pot, which would be certain to absorb all the grease and gravy from the
It
cholent.
was making a meat pie out of the
It
chocolate.
wasn't really, it was like a lined pot thing. Okay, but what would happen is, my mother would also use, here it comes, Renee, a blech. Do you know what is a blech?
No.
No.
Okay, now since the Orthodox, which we were modern Orthodox, do not use the stove on Shabbat, what you do is you put a sheet, it's mostly asbestos, it's amazing how we poisoned ourselves in those days. You put a sheet of asbestos over the top of your stove, and it's made so that the front end is bent over the controls. Why is the front end bent over the
Accidentally
controls?
touch them and turn them on or off.
That's right. You could, in a fit of madness, you could turn your heat up or down or turn the thing on anyway. And on the blech, she put two things: the cholent pot and also
The black is what again?
a blech is this. It is a sheet
Oh,
of
it's a sheet of
asbestos,
asbestos,
and it
okay.
covers up your controls. Okay? Do you want your controls covered up?
No.
Never.
Okay. Anyway.
Especially with asbestos.
All right. So, and she put the pot of cholent on top, and next to that,
Or in the oven, I don't understand.
no, it doesn't go. It didn't have to go in the oven. She cooked it on top of the stove. Because if you put it in
But
the
it's
oven, you have
covered with asbestos, so how did the key?
you have to
You
no.
put the
It's
pot on top
you
of the
put one
asbestos?
burner on. It's a gas stove, and the blech, as a matter of fact, it wasn't really asbestos. It was mostly metal. Communicated the heat to the pot.
Was it
Next-
a metal?
Yes.
Okay.
Heat
As
Conduction.
again,
Heat
let
conduction.
me illustrate. It's like this, only the piece of the front covers up the controls. How are your controls?
It's
My
induction
controls
heat.
are under control.
Okay. So anyway, next to that, she put the coffee pot, because my parents were such caffeine addicts, they couldn't go 24 hours without a cup of coffee. Okay?
Coffee?
Unless they made tea, in which case my father would make tea cents. Do we know tea cents?
Nobody had a glaze or a tea.
No. No, he didn't. He was.
What's a tea set?
Tea cents is when you take about 5 or 6 or 12 tea bags and you soak them in hot water and you get this super concentrated tea. And if you want to drink tea, because you're not allowed to use a tea bag on Shabbat because it violates Shabbat. We can talk about that later. Okay? And you add the tea cents to your cup and then you pour enough hot water on top to make your tea. Yes. All right. Back to the cholent. So let's see. So in the cholent, she of course put the chuck, which is a very cheap piece of meat, and beans and barley and all kinds of things like that. So on Shabbos, what?
Potatoes?
Oh, of course. Potatoes are the Jewish national
What
vegetable.
about carrots? You use
That
carrots?
too, yes. Very good.
Onions?
Where's that recipe? That recipe should be
Onions?
going around.
Somebody stole it for their house.
Oh, Paul. All right. Anyway, what would happen is we would have shul, and shul would last from 9 o'clock till 11:30, and then we would go downstairs into the social hall to have kiddush. Now the women on their side had a nice bottle of Sabra. Do we remember Sabra?
Yes.
I got a
Sabra
bottle of
liqueur, chocolate and orange. The men's side would have the cheapest rot gut you could imagine. We had Four Feathers, we had Old Smuggler, we had Old Overholt. Everything was old, including the members. Like I told you, they were probably in their 50s.
The women had
Anyway, I
wine
was
and the men
13.
had
No, the
liquor.
women had liqueur. They would give me a wax paper cup. Remember wax paper cups? With a little tiny 1/4 inch of whiskey in the bottom, and I would toss that back because they taught you how to do it with a stiff arm. And first you have to eat a kechel. You know what is a kechel?
For the soup?
Right? No,
No.
we're still in the shul. The kechel absorbs the whiskey so it can work better.
It was like light, fluffy, hard though. Kind of.
It's hard, but it has no sugar and no flavor in it
Yeah.
Sort of
whatsoever.
like rounded at the top?
It's like the same
Yes.
dough as the bow ties, but without the sugar.
Yes, bow ties are civilized.
Yeah.
Kichel is like from the back alleys.
Isn't it egg kickle or something like that?
A kichel?
Egg, E-G-G.
Yes, but they only wave the eggs over them. Yes,
The best egg kickle in New York was Stella D'oro.
yes. Orthodox
the
Jews love
best
Stella
kichel.
D'Oro. Yes, especially the strange apricot cookies with the blob in the middle.
That was
yeah.
good.
Okay. Anyway, I'll finish this up because we're going over. I've got my whiskey. I've got my kichel. I go home. My mother loads me with cholent, and that knocked me out for about 3 hours. And you know how you wake up in the afternoon, your mouth feels really crappy, and you don't even wake yourself up because your father wakes you up in his tender sweet. David, wake up for mincha, which was the afternoon service. So those are the memories of Shabbat. Yes, Paul.
I have a question.
This is the blend.
No. Bless you. What is the difference between Orthodox and modern Orthodox?
Modern Orthodox means you don't have payas, you don't have the big hat, and then really nowadays it means you can text on Shabbat. But
No,
when I
that's
was a
not
kid,
true.
yeah, several
That-
rabbis have ruled that. Yeah, but wait,
Well-
when I was a kid, we didn't do any of that stuff. You had to walk up the stairs. We lived on the 7th floor, unless somebody was in the elevator, in which case I ran in and prayed that the door would close sufficiently.
Modern
And you can't
Orthodox
carry.
nowadays refers to those people who follow a particular rabbi by the name of Isaac Cook, and stands for what is the Mizrahi movement, which was founded in 1917, and followed what is called religious Zionism. They are called modern Orthodox, contrary to those who, especially before the creation of the state, opposed a creation of a Jewish state and held on to black orthodoxy. In America, the main rabbi in modern Orthodoxy was Rabbi Joseph Soloveitchik.
Okay. All right. Let me just finish with something light. Oh, here we go. Let's see. All right. This was in Ohio. This was in Ohio on February 14th. It was very windy in Ohio. Okay. And we all know the Ohio theme song. Why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, did I ever leave Ohio?
Why did I wander to find what was
Okay,
yonder?
if you have a small dog, if you have a Chihuahua, this Chihuahua's name is Tinkerbell, and you can see she's adorable. But you had to hold on to Tinkerbell because she would blow away.
Yeah.
Okay.
I could-
Thank you so much for coming. This was certainly